And thanks, Tina, for being willing to do this. We talk at SIBF a lot about how we've got exciting stories among our membership that don't often get told. So I'm super excited about sharing the stage here with Tina because we met over 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, and we jumped into talking about business, and which is one of our passions. We both love to kind of chase the deal and chase business opportunities. And we jumped into that, and I didn't actually realize what a big deal she was. And so she's an entrepreneur, a songwriter, a musician, a producer, a best-selling author, an advocate for women's rights and LGBTQ rights. I talk too fast, and just an all-around wonderful person. And in that, every time I dig into Tina, I learn something new. And today she stands here as a Grammy Award-winning artist. She won a Grammy Award for her work with Natalie Cole. She wrote songs and produced for Aretha Franklin, Dionne Warwick, LeAnn Rimes, Chaka Khan, and the list goes on and on. She even wrote the theme song for NASA. So, just an amazing individual, and we're going to get to know her today. I won't read her entire bio. I want to share that, I'm just really excited to have you here today, Tina.
Thank you, Mark. Wherever you ask me to go, that's where I will be.
Well, you've been a faithful friend in that regard.
So no, I was thrilled to be able to be here today and be a part of the ongoing discussions, and especially to talk to you, and the conversation be between the two of us.
Well, that's great. Just for the folks that either don't know you as well as I do, or would like to reveal some new things, I'd like to ask a few questions and talk a few things about your past, and then we can move into talking about the business of music, because I know that's something that is going to be a leading indicator about what the future is going to look like. I read somewhere, and this was one of the things I learned like yesterday, getting ready for this, that actually you were quote unquote discovered by Stevie Wonder. Is that really true? And how did a young woman from Mississippi, Stevie Wonder?
That is true. And yes, it was in Mississippi. And at the time I'd graduated from college, I went straight on the road with the band that I was in. And we were playing down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. But my whole goal and dreams from the time I can remember, probably 9 or 10 years old, was to get to LA and be in the music business. I grew up on a farm in Mississippi, in a little rural town in Mississippi, and I had big dreams, and everybody tried to bring me back to reality that was in my family, except for my mom. And my mom was a songwriter in the big band era and down in New Orleans. So, she was the only one that really understood and guided and was my balcony person. So with that, I could do anything. And she told me I could do anything. So I graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi and went straight on the road. And I was a couple of years of being on the road. From our first gig actually was in Atlanta, believe it or not. I won't tell you the details of it, but it was some crazy times in the 70s. And we ended up on the Gulf Coast, and we were playing at a club there, 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning every night. We were the house band, moonlighting, if that's possible, with a 9 to 3 job with a studio in Louisiana, in Bogalusa, Louisiana. And Kansas had just recorded there, and then Stevie Wonder was coming to record there. And I was a second engineer in training, and that's just a short term for a grunt or sweep the floor, get the coffee. So that's what I did there, and I met him there as a gopher, and he came to hear me one night and surprised me in Biloxi at this club. He took me under his wing, and when he went back to LA, he had someone to reach out to me and say that, did I want to come to LA and kind of do an understudy with him? And I was like, yeah, but I don't have any money. I don't know how, I can't get to LA. And he said, well, I'll send you a one-way ticket. And when you get ready to go back, I'll buy you another ticket to go back. So that's when I took off to LA. It was probably in 70, I don't remember exactly year, maybe 78 or something. And I was privileged to be able to go to the studio with him he went to the studio around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because he, being blind, time did not matter. And when he did Hotter Than July. And so I was able to sit with this genius through that album and experience him writing and creating. And when I said that process, I was not writing with him, but just being a part and sitting on the piano stool. And people ask me, how did that change? What did that do for me? How did that change my life or whatever? And it's something I've never been able to pinpoint, except I know it changed me drastically. And it made me know exactly what I wanted. And it just sunk really, really deep into me, being able to experience that. So the short story is that, yes, he is the one that kind of set my sails a while. But I was really young, and I knew that I was not ready to be in LA just to, I spent that time there, but I felt like I needed to come back and really hone my craft. And until I had a job out there, it wasn't time to go. So I'm back. And, my father had told me he would disown me if I left with this man and went to California, because he had no clue who Steve, nor did he care. And so he thought that in love with a black man. And that was just the worst possible thing in the world. And it was, it was so crazy and out there. He said, I will disown you if you go to California with that black man. And I thought to myself, okay, my dad disowned me, or go to California with Stevie Wonder. And I was like, see you, Daddy. And obviously, he didn't disown me. And it was an amazing, amazing experience that I will always be grateful for.
Wow. What a great story. One of the things that people ought to know about you before we move on is you are credited with writing the most performed song in history. And that's globally, the most performed song. Well, I've always seen that in your bio, and I just always assumed it was the You Deserve a Break Today that you wrote for McDonald's that was their theme song for decades. Well, when I actually went to find the exact song, I felt like, well, Mark, you're being just a little bit shallow these days. Actually, the song is called Break the Chain, and it has a very powerful story about it. So how did Break the Chain, tell us about what happened. How did you come to create a song, Break the Chain? Tell us what the context of that was. And then this claim that it's the most performed song in the world.
Well, that claimed it. That's what I've been told by many, many people. And I guess because it's performed every year in 202 countries around the world, and been sung in pretty much, I can't say every language, but the majority of languages. And it's thousands and thousands and thousands of videos that have been made of the performance of the song. And so somebody anointed me with that. I have no idea. It seems likely. I think you made a good guess thinking it was Have You Had Your Break Today, McDonald's. That's probably what my mother would have said was the most her favorite thing. But I'm saying it wasn't that. I got a call from E. Vensler. E. Vensler, the Vagina Monologues, and has vday.org, and started this huge movement many years, and then created about, I don't know, time flies, probably 8 or 9 years ago, or 10 years ago, it's called 1 Billion Rising. And the whole goal that she had, to have 1 billion women on February the 14th every year around the globe to walk out and in solidarity of wherever they are, whether they're in their home or there they may be, and sing this song and dance this dance that this song, that got the choreography that goes with this song in solidarity. I don't know if she's reached 1 billion, but it sure looks like it. If you look online, you can look from every videos from, sometimes there's 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people that are singing and dancing this song. When she first asked me to this, to stop domestic violence, to stop violence against women, you know, it took me 1 second to say yes. And I was so honored and grateful, humbled to be able to have a part in this. So I called one of 2 of my best friends, and Debbie Allen, and said, with this, and she goes, yeah, let me hear it. And I said, well, I haven't written it yet, but when I write it, we choreograph it. And then I want you to teach the song online, and we'll teach you'll teach the dance, I'll teach the song, and the rest was history. And Brain is about realizing, as a woman, whoever you are, wherever you are, and that your body is holy, and that you are a beautiful creature, and no matter how much you may be beat down or told you can't do things or tortured, or, you know, there's millions and millions of stories that you are a beautiful human being, that you are worth, that God created you, and you are worth something amazing. And the song is an uplifting song, but it's about stopping it. And it's up-tempo, which I'm more kind of like David Foster. I'm known for my ballads, but this is up-tempo and a dance song. Get a chance, go check it out. You can look at the video that we did. At first, we were going to do a We Are the World type thing, and I was just going to get a lot of celebrity artists to come and sing it. And then I talked about it, and we just said, you know, this is really, I think, true to the roots of this. Let's go to New York. Let's have an open call casting, but the singers that come cannot be professional Broadway singers or any kind of professional singers. It has to be young women that come in from wherever and audition for us. And we probably had, in New York where we were, we probably had 400 women down the line. I mean, girls, young girls and women down the street. And we found actually too many, narrowing it down to 11. But when you look at the original video of Break the Chain, you'll see these young girls singing this song that had never recorded anything before. And it's quite amazing, and it's really been a highlight in my life.
Well, that's terrific. Well, with that, it's kind of, we could spend the entire time talking about your fascinating life, which it has been, and such little intimate vignettes with us. You know, let's move on to business. I think it may surprise people on the call to know that your company that you started over 20 years ago, DMI Music and Media, has probably touched each and every person on this call. Because if we've been to a Walgreens, if we've flown on a Delta Airlines plane, if we've been to an AMC movie theater, and the list goes on and on, there's been kind of what you call the sound DNA of a brand, which is one of the things that you did at DMI, that's we don't even probably pay attention to, but that we're listening in the background. And you've touched us all, believe it or not. And how did you come to start DMI? It's interesting because you started off as a performer, then you moved to songwriter, and then you started moving into a producer, and now you sort of sit on both sides of the equation. You're buying music for clients, and you're producing and selling music. So tell us a little bit about DMI and how it came to be 20 years.
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur, but I've never been confused. It's always been in the music business. And so the more success I had in film and television and the record business and commercials, I had about 10% of my career was with brands, with commercials. I was a music production house for Leo Burnett out of Chicago, but in LA. And that was about 10% of my career. But it was kind of like my little secret, because in those times it was not a popular thing. It was faux pas to work with a brand commercial. You weren't cool if you did that. You were a sellout. And but the crazy was, I would make more on a McDonald's campaign than I would on a platinum record, and that was my little secret. And so I think Barry Manilow did the same. But so I wasn't willing to give that up. I just didn't go out and talk about it. When I had record labels, I had production companies with Motown and various labels. I knew that from an entrepreneur standpoint, as a songwriter, you don't have really any control. Somebody wants to cut your song and you agree to let them cut it for the first time. You have the say-so on who can cut it. After that, it's kind of, it's out there and anybody can cut it. But you really don't have any say-so over the production, et cetera, et cetera. And I really wasn't crazy, but I loved getting my songs cut in the beginning, of course. But I wanted to have more control over what it sounded like, because there was sexism, believe it or not, in the music business. It would be like, oh my God, I love this demo. An A&R person would say at the label, who did the demo? And I would say, I produced the demo. Oh, okay. Well, we've got this guy that's going to produce it. And it would just kill me, because they would it's fine if they were going to take that demo and make it better, but they would take my demo, and for the most part, they would cut the song exactly, my arrangement, exactly what I had done, because that's what the artist had fallen in love with. So I was like, okay, I got to just get to a certain status that I can just say, I'm going to produce it, or you can't cut it. So I became a producer, and it's a longer story how, and I won't get into that, but I had it, all it took really was a #1 song. And then all of a sudden I was a producer, which I had before that. So then it was like, okay, I don't really have any control as a producer if the song is really going to get out there, and how much marketing is going to be put behind it, and what is the marketing plan. So then I started a production company. And then I had a production company, but then I was always kind of a stepchild to, I hate that term, but anyway, stepchild to, whoever was actually on the label that the label was putting out, opposed to who was in my production company that the label was putting out. So at the time I was Miles Copeland, who had discovered the Police and was Sting's manager for decades, was managing me, and he said, let's just start a label. He said, don't worry about a production company. So Miles and I created a label, and then in 1996, I think is when, I'm not sure exactly what year, but it was around then that Napster happened. And it was like one of those moments. And I knew at the time, it wasn't like I was some genius, but I knew half of my colleagues were saying, run for the hills, the music industry's over, and the other half were saying, oh, it's not going to affect us at all. We're still going to have these big promo budgets, and et cetera, et cetera. I just felt like it was somewhere in the middle. And thank God I'd had the experience branding enough throughout all those years to know how agencies somewhat worked, and know how brands kind of worked. And my whole concept was, wait a minute, let me get this straight. If I see the emotional on the big screen on a film that I've worked on, and I worked on many movies, if I see the difference that music and that underscore makes with that film, and I've seen the film without the music there, and it's painful, why is that not, why can't I do the same thing with brands? And then I put that same kind of litmus test to television and all the TV shows I worked on and the records and the emotional connection. So my whole goal was to kind of flip the mindset of brands and artists, meaning artists didn't want to be connected with brands. But guess what? Things were changing and their promotional dollars were drying up. And unless you were at the very, very, very top 1 percentile, you weren't getting any money spent on you when you were spending a year cutting your record to be set on a shelf. So I just felt that now was the time to jump off the mainstream ship and go with this idea of connecting consumers to brands through the emotional power of music. And not that that's just some fluffy or cool way to say it, but really do it. Take the concept of film and records and television and make that, do the same with brands. Because a lot of times, majority of the time, music was a real afterthought. Our music was just something after the commercial had been shot. Oh, we got to put this in, put some music, find some music, you know. And most of the time they were paying way too much for music. So I started this company, 97. It was, everybody thought I'd lost my mind because I had a very successful career in the music business. But I didn't want to be on this train that stopped. And then I'm standing there like a lot of my friends in the music business ended up having to just kind of retire and move up to Lake Arrowhead or Palm or something and twiddle their thumbs. And my first account, which I knew we were onto something, I hired 2 people. My first account was United Airlines. And it came from my work with Leo Burnett all those years. I went to the CEO of Leo Burnett, who was a good friend of mine, and said, I got this idea. I want to show you the storyboards. Probably a lot of y'all remember when everybody used to schlep around with storyboards. I said, I've got the storyboards of how to connect your gateway cities to their consumer cities. And I showed him, then we were using CDs. And long story short, the rest was history because it was the fastest I ever closed a deal. We closed the deal that day. It was the CMO of United at the time, and United has been my client ever since. And that's been 23 years ago. We still do a lot of different things. I have cut Rhapsody in Blue. Probably I've done 60 or 70 arrangements from country to pop to R&B to jazz. Gershwin would turn over in his grave. But it was about creating that sound DNA for United and into every touch point. And so that's what DMI does. What matter to us, look, I love selling millions and millions and trillions of CDs every year for brands to connect. But, you know, it did not matter to us. I used to tell brands, if it's on the end of a pen, the music, it doesn't matter as long as you're delivering that music in a way that they can connect. So it's been a beautiful ride. We have a proprietary technology and proprietary way of business and strategy that we create beyond the trademark Sound DNA, and we do it for a lot of major global brands. And through that comes many activations, and that could be writing the theme song, doing the music in store. And that's what Mark was talking about it's in AMC, Regal, et cetera, it's the music you hear. That's just not canned music like a lot of competitors do, like music by the pound. It's about, we really dive deep into, and who is that? Your consumer geographically too, but not only geographically, day parts. Who's in there in the morning? Who's in there in the afternoon? Who's in there at night? We really curate to those consumers that are there. And it doesn't have to be brick and mortar. A lot of our clients are not brick and mortar. But anyway, it's I made the right decision. I still write. It's not that I stopped writing. I still write. I'm just not chasing every artist right now, nor do I want to. Been there and done that. I don't know if any of y'all saw the David Foster documentary, but you know, there's a lot of similarities there, and I'll let you guess which ones. So, but it's been amazing. But it's always been about music. Always. I've never ever wavered. It's just different ways of, you know, with publishing, writing, producing, marketing, etc.
Well, one of the things I admire about you, Tena, knowing you is how you do innovate business models, because you mentioned Napster, and you know, I think everybody in the group would understand that the business model and the economics once CDs went away, you know, has been challenging for everybody in the music industry, and so there's been a tremendous amount of disruption, and then you overlay COVID-19 and the pandemic. You know, my understanding, knowing you, is to make a lot of their money in, you know, in concerts. I know the last time I bought a sandbar ticket at a concert, I was shocked at how much it cost. You know, what's going to happen to the business model kind of going forward? You know, Garth Brooks had his drive-in concert. There's not many cars. You can't put the same number of cars, you know, in a drive-in that you can put in Mercedes-Benz Stadium or, you know, any of the other big venues. You know, where do you see people making money? What's going to happen to the music industry from your point of view?
Well, obviously, when CDs went away, because that's where the margins were, and that's where all the labels got fat. You know, LPs, sets, CDs, any kind of hardware, that hard goods. And so ever since then, there's been, you know, everybody's been trying to figure out, okay, how can we monetize this? How do we make money on this when there's no physical product anymore? And then, you know, the next thing was downloads, and downloads were a blip. They were not cost effective. They were not cost effective for brands, you know, who we were dealing with, of course, because if you're paying 70 or 80 cents per download for or giving your consumer the opportunity for that, you're giving them what, one song? You're giving them 2 songs, or where before you were giving them a CD or a 5-song LP, so to speak, or EPK. And so that did not make a lot of sense. And even as our events, if you did redemption, okay, you can go and redeem these. Well, the brands knew, and people knew that were doing those promotions, that it really probably was not going to cost them that much, because the follow through on redemption was dismal. So after that, then it became streaming. And streaming, now I'm going to wear 2 hats, because you asked me to wear 2 hats, Mark, from where I am with DMI. As a writer, I hate streaming, because the money you make, like right now, when I get my royalty checks from ASCAP, et cetera, or BMI, whoever the writer's with, you know, streaming, I mean, you can't live off streaming unless you're somebody that's, you know, I don't even know what the number would be, at the very, very, very top, and you stay there. But from a business standpoint, from the distributor, like myself or other music distributors, it's a beautiful thing, because you're not paying very much. And so it's like, I think, Mark, you and I were talking about last week, there is a golden door there somewhere. There is that secret code. There is, then I think about it all the time, of how to crack the code of what's going to be fair to the artist, and what's going to be fair to, whether it's the broadcaster or the brand or the music distributor. I mean, with DMI, we curate millions of pieces of music every month, and we pay for that. But what is, and it's not cheap. but it's because of the amount that we're curating. So how do you bring the big question, and I think whoever figures it out, and I wish it would be me, but I don't think I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I haven't been able to do it yet. I know I've got the back end knowledge for it, but what can appease and please both sides? And that's because, and for now over 15 years or so have been taught that music is free for the most part. So it's out there somewhere. We'll get there because you can't just work for free all the time. And there's no, you enjoy getting to hear your song played or hear your song performed somewhere. So that's why live performances have been, and concerts have been so huge and have been the moneymaker for a long time. So now you throw COVID in there. Everybody's doing great, fat and happy with the live concerts. Has a live division. We do big concerts and small concerts all over. And when we had 19 concerts canceled between March and July. And now where we are is we have, most of them have been pushed to next, but now nobody even knows when next year. The only thing within our live division that we have stayed on the books is a big PGA thing in Hawaii. And, golf, I guess golf is one of the safest things, but then people are going to be outside, but they're going to hear this concert. So I had the privy of being on some really great conversations around live events with some big heavy hitters around the country, and pretty much nobody is planning anything live until May of 21. Now that could change, but it's pretty depressing, but I think it's better to be smart and get geared up for May and not even knowing then rather to keep trying to book things. Oh, we're going to do it next month, or we're going to do it next month, because you can't, as a company, you can't, sustain the overhead and the employees and everything else if everything keeps getting pushed out 3 months, 6 months, whatever. So we're planning on January for one, but more than likely, party of them will be start in May. Does that answer?
No, I think that's good, because it's good to know. It's not good for your business, but I think that all of us are wondering in our own businesses, what's going to happen? When will people, be able to interact? Because that interaction, no matter what we're doing, has for most of us, has an impact. Let's talk a little bit about, we're going to run out of time. We've got so much, I think I've got about 200 more questions, but I'm not going to get to ask them all. But let's talk a little about technology. I Googled technologies impacting the music industry, and a couple of things came up. So if I don't know what I'm talking about, you ask the Google. And the first thing the Google said was that augmented reality, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence having a transformative impact on the way artists can share their work and interact with their listeners. Do you have any point of view on these new they're not so new technologies, but obviously, they're technologies that are being adopted by the music industry?
Look, on any normal day before the pandemic, I was sitting in the office and all over the country of, CMOs with major brands and marketing teams, et cetera. Those conversations come up, but to date, there hasn't been anything sellable there. There hasn't been any kind of, it's kind of somebody just brings it up to be cool, but there hasn't been a connection yet. And to be honest with you, we keep doing what we're doing and kind of watching from the side the way it goes, and have not invested in any kind of offering there, so to speak. It's not to say that we won't, but I mean, look, it just may be my ignorance, but I don't find that that's anything in my world that we're chasing.
Yeah, the most interesting thing that I read about, I'd be curious your point of view. I love Shazam, so that you can the music recognition technology. And one of the things I read in preparing to be with you today was that that music recognition technology may actually have an application in helping enforce royalty payments, to artists, because that technology could be in a club or a venue, and could sort of monitor the music that's being played without paying the royalties that should be paid. That seemed to be one of the things that might be an interesting application of technologies. Is that being done, or is that just somebody just trying to be smart?
I don't know. I mean, look, the performing rights societies are always trying to find, ways to better track their performances. So, hey, power to them if they can do it that way. From a standpoint of algorithms and with various platforms like, whether it's Pandora, Spotify, whatever, that is everything that DMI is not. And it's not that I don't use it. I use it here at my house, depending on, what I'm doing. But for a brand, I don't want you, if you're brand A, well, let's just say if you're United Airlines, I don't want you getting on Delta or going into Kroger's and hearing the same playlist, right? So a lot of these algorithms and platforms like that, it's more of a music by the pound that we're going to push to you because we think you're blah, blah, blah. Whereas with DMI, we're in the trenches with your marketing team at United or Walgreens or whatever, listening to what is the new marketing objectives for third quarter, for fourth quarter. Here's who we're trying to reach. We're going after women 35 to 55 in Q3. We're going to blah, 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 whatever it may be. And so we human curate. We have, probably 60 or 70 curators that are specialists in those genres of music. And that's what we create from the Sound DNA, is who that consumer is. That doesn't mean that consumer will never change. Next year it could be something else, and maybe we have to tweak a little bit that sound. But we really preach against that far end. But for everyday listening, yeah, it's great. And for royalties, hey, if they can track it that way, good.
The other technology thing that popped up that I thought was machines being used to compose music. And I know that's got a lot of controversy, and a lot of folks don't like it.
You're going to make me start drinking early, okay? I hate that.
Because I wonder whether, something as personal and emotional as music. Music conveys emotion. Can AI do that? Can a machine do that, do you think?
No. I mean, I am a hard artist and writer, and I don't know, can a machine write a book? Can a machine paint a masterpiece that's going to go into, wherever? No. My answer 100% no. But, if you like artificial stuff, then I guess it's fun and you can do it. But you can't create soul and heart and emotion that's going onto that screen or that moment. It's like always in writing, whether it's with an artist or whether it's a film, TV show, or even commercial. My question is, what is the intent of this scene? What is the intent? I will ask the director or the artist. when writing, what is the intention that you want to convey here? And, you know, that comes from a human being. And those feelings and those songs that you love and listen to and bring back memories from every part of your life were written by a person that you feel like sometimes when you hear a hit song, you get when you feel like, I felt the same way. I should have written that song. Like something, that's exactly the way I feel. It's because that person has had that same experience as you have.
I've got lots more questions, and I want to give the audience some time to ask their questions. But I have one last question I'd like to ask. One of the prerogatives of being able to be here with you is I get to ask the questions. And so when I had the privilege of being with Pat Mitchell a few weeks ago at an SIBF event, I asked her about a famous interview she did with Fidel Castro because it interested me, and it was something I wanted to hear. And when I was reading some of your credits, you have an album that contains one of my very favorite songs. It's an old Dionne Warwick album called Reservations for Two, and the song, you didn't write this song, so I apologize, but one of my favorite songs on that album. Did you write that song?
Yeah.
You wrote Reservations for Two. Did you? The song I loved was For Everything You Are. Did you write that one?
No.
Oh, okay. Darn. So I'm going rogue on you. I promise.
Okay. Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm going rogue. No, but there was a song, For Everything You Are, is on my list of one of my very favorite songs. What was it like working with Dionne Warwick on that project? Because you did write Reservation for Two, the title song.
Mark, you've frozen. Okay.
Oh no. Am I back?
Okay. Okay. You said, what was it like working with Dionne Warwick?
On that project, because you did write the title song, Reservations for Two. Yeah. I was just curious if you had a 2-second anecdote from that would just appease a fan.
Yeah, I met Dionne. I was at the shrine or something. She was my idol, and Hal David, and I stood outside the door at the auditorium to try to meet her, and I got to meet her. Sure, she never remembered me until I got to LA, and Hal David is who took me. Hal David of Burt Bacharach, and Hal David is who actually took me under his wing to LA when I actually moved to LA, which was in 1982. And so I'd gone to this restaurant on Melrose. I can't remember the name of it now. And I walked in, and the maitre d' said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yes, I have reservations for two." Well, when a song hits me, it just hits me. I can't do anything else. And so the person I was with, I was just like, oh my God, I will go ahead and sit down. I said, "I'll see you in a few minutes. I got to go do something." And I went and I started just scribbling, and I started writing. I was like, oh my God, this is a hit song. Oh my God. So I kept writing and writing and writing and writing. I got home and I called a really good friend of mine and said, you want to help finish the song? Because he was like one of the most famous bass players in the world. And so was my other close friend that wrote it with me. And I said, so help me write it. And I think we have a hit. So I played it for him. He goes, yeah, I think we got a hit. So it was the fastest I ever had a song cut. We finished the song that night about 2:00 in the morning. The next day, Greg Fillingham, very famous keyboard player for Michael Jackson and a lot of other people, was flying to New York to record this album, Dionne Warwick album with Clive Davis. And so Nathan East, who wrote the song with me, famous bass player, gave the song to Greg before he got on the plane that morning. He took it into Clive. Clive called me that next day and said, we want to cut the song. So then I did not produce the song, so I wasn't able to be in the studio when they cut it, but I was able to be there when they shot the video. And from that day forward, Dionne and I have very close friends, and We've worked together on many, many, many projects. So, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, I cut a Christmas record on her. And, but we still talk and we're still good friends, and I adore her. So that's my Dionne Warwick
Well,
story.
thanks. At this point, I'm going to turn the virtual microphone over to Shannon, and Blake and Amy are in the background helping make all this happen. So Shannon, let me hand it back to you to facilitate the questions from the audience.
Great, thank you for that great discussion. Tina, thanks so much for joining us today. I'll start with the first question. In today's environment and with a really new artist, would you release a new album knowing that at the moment they can't perform live, that option is not available?
No.
Okay.
Hey, but look, there's a lot of opinions, but my opinion would be no. If you can't get out there and support that record right now, you've waited a long time to write it and cut it and everything. Just give it a little more time. And because once it's out there, it's out there.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, Southern Discomfort?
Well, it's exactly what the title is. It was Southern Discomfort. Growing up in Mississippi, it's my coming of age story, growing up in Mississippi during the Civil Rights era, as coming from living a very privileged but dysfunctional upbringing. And it was just about those times during the Civil Rights era and coming out also as a gay woman. And that was not until my end of my college, but that was not really any big fanfare or anything. It was more so the book is about times and growing up there in a very, very, very tiny, and it was about the racism, it was about the love, it was about dysfunction. It was, but it definitely has a silver lining and has somewhat of a triumphant ending. And it's on Simon & Schuster, and it came out in 2018, and I was on the road for Simon & Schuster 10 months. And it's been an amazing journey. It still is. Still is.
Right. Who are some of your favorite artists to listen to?
Well, I still love, most artists I listen to are still some of my all-time favorites, which is Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, Sting, Joni Mitchell, a lot of the more of the older. I love Lady Gaga's work on A Star Is Born. I thought that songwriting, the songwriting on that movie was incredible, and I just had a whole lot of respect for her. Love that album. You know, there's a lot. I mean, I'm just kind of a smorgasbord when it comes to music. There's so many things I love. Classical, I got turned on to opera about 15 years ago, and always had hated. I thought I hated it. No, I love everything from one extreme to the other. I love everything from, like I said, Nina Simone to Bocelli. I mean, it's all over the board.
And does Michelle share your love and passion for music?
Yes, I think from a consumer, she does, and she's definitely happy that he's married to a musician, musician producer.
Great. Looking back at your career, what are the 3 projects that you're most proud of?
Wow. I'd have to say 1 Billion Rising, which we talked about. I would say they're working with Aretha Franklin. There's so many great artists that I've worked with. That's why I really don't have, it's so hard for me to, I've never, when I've been asked to produce certain singers, not that I thought this was not from any kind of arrogant standpoint. I have perfect pitch, and I work with great singers, and I just can't work with somebody I'm going to have to do anything, electronically to tune them. I've never played that game, won't do it. What you hear is what you get. And, Aretha is just incredible. Patti LaBelle I've worked with for years. Patty's incredible. Shaka Khan's amazing. But as far as the actual projects themselves, I would say life-changing would be Aretha, 1 Billion Rising, and also NASA. The project with NASA was changing as well.
What about your children? Do any of them have an interest in the music industry, and would you support their choice, or would you steer them in a different direction?
The answer is no, there's not an interest there. Would I steer them in a different direction? Probably. But would I be supportive? Yes, because I don't want to ever sound like my father. My daughter, who is a trauma veterinarian and medical director now in New Orleans, of the largest vet hospital in the tri-state area. She always said she was going to be a vet, but she was very much into musical theater. I mean, what she did in high school, she always wanted to go to Broadway and try out her chops, and I was just like cringe, but I was like supportive, but I was saying all the things in my head that my dad would have said, but they did not come out of my mouth. When she went to meet with her counselor in undergrad, before she went to Georgia for vet school, he asked her, said, what do you want to major in? She said, well, I wanted to know if I could have, and he said, well, what would that be? And she goes, pre-vet and musical theater. And he said, well, I've never been asked that before, and they're both very, very time consuming. So I would suggest pick one. So I just, walked away, closed my eyes, clicked my heels 3 times, hoping that it was going to be the vet, and it was. But then when right before she was going to apply for school, she called me in LA and said, Mom, I need you to hear me out here. I want to take a gap year and go to New York for a year and try my chops at Broadway. It could have hit me in the gut, because even if you're successful on Broadway, you're really making a sustainable living, and the chances of being successful it's painful. So I didn't even know what to say. And then she said to me before I could answer, she goes, look, Mom, I'm not asking you to support me there. I'm asking you to be supportive. So I just swallowed and said, okay, let's go. And she did it for about 10 months and hated it and said, okay, I'm ready to go to vet school now. So I think that's what we have to do, obviously, with kids. Let them try their wings and just hope for the best and be supportive.
Sure. Mark brought up technology earlier. Are there any interesting music technology on the horizon that you're aware of?
You said musical what?
Wearable technology?
Not that I'm, privy to or familiar with. I mean, I just lose my my AirPods, about one a week. I just bought a new one yesterday. They're probably all out somewhere here in Serenity, but that's what I live with. But no, I don't know of anything really.
Okay. What kind of employees are companies hiring in the new music business?
Right now, or just in general?
In general, I think. Yeah.
Well, I would reach out to me and say, hey, could you take 5 minutes and talk to my kid? They want to be in the music business. They're at Stanford right now, or wherever, but I'm saying, and they've just lost interest. They want, and will you talk to them? And they've always wanted to be in the music business, and can you guide them? And if somebody's really, 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 if that's all your kid or you want, you live, eat, and breathe is music, then you should pursue that. And it doesn't have to be that you're going to be, Celine Dion or Lady Gaga or whatever, or the greatest writer ever. If that's, there's a million different opportunities in the music business. Like we talked about, there's concerts, there's promotion, there's publishing. Publishing is where the money is. There's publishing, there's music editing, there's, I think the worst thing, and I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes here, but I cannot tell you how many people call me and say, my kid wants to be an engineer. What do you think? Those jobs are like, a needle in a hat now, because of all the home studios and because of doesn't mean you can't be, but even if you're at the top, I mean, my engineers through all of those years, those guys, they make a decent living, but it's just a decent living, and they're engineering for some of the top artists, right? So if somebody wants to be an engineer, I'd say look more into the television world of engineering and adding music into TV, editing music into film, those. But it's tough. But there's a lot of opportunity around management or, whatever. It's a tough business. Even people that've been doing it as long as I have, we're constantly trying to figure it out. We're constantly recreating, constantly morphing. And that doesn't mean that, but if you see with your child or your friend or whatever, they just can't even eat, sleep, or breathe without pursuing this, then they should do it.
One last question before I turn it back over to Mark for final comments. The music industry, how has it responded to the nationwide racial injustice protests?
Not as well as I would have hoped. But, I'm speaking from a vacuum here, and the same thing about myself. I've been starting to write a few things around it. I have written. I wrote a song back in the 80s that I cut on Gladys Knight that was about racism in Mississippi, called Walk the Line. I've been talking to Dennis, redoing that and creating something like 1 Billion Rising that we did, but around the whole, racial issues. I think arts change the minds and hearts of people. And you can be hardcore feeling a certain way, and I feel like you can hear a song with a message, or you can watch something in theater, or you can watch a movie or a TV show, and it can change you forever. And I think as an artist and as an artist community, it is our duty to write and create as much as we possibly can around these subject matters to possibly move the hearts and minds. And to me, the only other way, and there is, I think, important, we can all talk about racism and that we've never been, racist and this and that and the other. But if you truly, and whatever it may be, whether it's LGBTQ or whether it's Black Lives Matter, or if it's Hispanic or Jewish or whatever it may be, if you don't sit down, if you don't have someone at your dinner table and get to know them, or sit down, break bread, get to know somebody that's different from you. How can you put people in a box? You can only put people in a box when you don't know them. We all think and breathe and love. You know, we all love our kids. We all have the same, a lot of the same desires and goals and wishes and hopes for ourselves, for our families, for our spouses, for our kids. And I just think it's, you know, it's a shame not to take this time to really try to open up and to get to know people, and the same for me. I'm not preaching here. I'm saying, you know, Michelle and I have a lot of these conversations. Look, there are areas that maybe we aren't involved in as much as we should be, and I just think it's about exposure. And I think that the arts give us a lot of that exposure as well. So it's my duty as an artist to do more. It's every artist that's out there in the business and around. When you were talking about the racial and civil unrest, is to have a voice and to use your God-given talent to get out there and make a change.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tina. We really appreciate it. We're so excited that you and Michelle are part of SIBF, and really appreciate your time today. So I'm going to turn it over.
We
to
are
Mark.
too. Thank you.
Turn it over to Mark for final comments.
Well, in true SIBF fashion, I have a virtual Tiffany's box to express our appreciation, with emphasis on virtual, Tina. And but seriously, thank you so much for the generosity of your time today. I know that I enjoyed it, and I hope that everybody in the video today enjoyed it. And a special thanks to Blake and Shannon and Amy for all the hard work that goes behind the scenes. There were countless hours that you guys put in to make this happen. So on behalf of the entire group, I want to thank them as well. So wish you all a great week, and thanks so much for being with us today.
And thanks for everybody that attended, and hopefully I'll meet you in person one day.
Take care.
Everybody be safe. Thank you.
Be safe. Bye.